Welcome back to the desk, folks. It's still the SPL, and I'm still F. This time in a new position. We've also got Anatoly here, and we're going to break down SoaR. We've got an interesting matchup for you, our third set of the day, and how you feeling about it, Anatoly?
This is a pretty good matchup, honestly. SoaR versus Flashpoint. These are two teams that are struggling throughout the split in the standings. So we're going to take a look at it here momentarily. They really need to find a way to get back into the thick of things if they want to guarantee their spot into LAN.
SoaR had a lot of issues really resulting behind the scenes or off the field, so to speak. We saw a departure of the solo laner, and it happened at a very, well, it just didn't work out as far as the timing is concerned. SoaR had to forfeit their games, not last week as it was the bye, but the week before that, so they couldn't get any traction there either. SoaR finally find themselves a solo laner in fineokay, a player that has really made the rounds around the Challenger Cup as well as some of the other places as far as our competitive Smite is concerned, but not the SPL. So fineokay will be making one of his first professional game debuts alongside SoaR, who is a very accomplished team. I think what it comes down to, Toly, is that, and no offense to fineokay here, but there just weren't many players available.
Well, honestly, whenever you take a rookie in the SPL and you pair it up with some veterans out of SoaR, specifically looking at andinster, they're going to mold this rookie in a position where he's going to feel very comfortable. It's also Homiefe in the jungle, so that pairing between fineokay and Homiefe, as long as they cater towards him in the early game, make sure he's in a comfortable spot, shouldn't be any problems for SoaR.
For those of you unfamiliar with the player, fineokay is an offensive player. He plays a lot of aggressive characters and really likes to make his presence known in the game in that way, whether it be by damage, control, or just being always in your face. Expect to see a lot and hear a lot of fineokay. And right now, expect to hear a lot of aggro and taco as we bring it to them for picks and bans.
Do you feel more comfortable here, Taco? You don't have to worry about anything directly in front of you. It's a lot of space.
I already miss it,
Wow.
and I just want it back.
It's too bad. You're never seeing it ever again. Cirquet and Sylvanas, the bands here. And like you heard him on the desk say, I'm really interested to see how fineokay is able to do. Has spent the majority of the last few months as a jungler in the Challenger Cup scene, but he was initially a solo laner, moving back to his initial role. It's going to be a tough task up against Flashpoint.
It's certainly not a role that he's foreign to, and
Yeah.
I feel as though this is, if anything, is really going to be a chance for him to display himself and the potential that he has as a player in order to flex in between these two roles. But I think it is a slight advantage for him, considering that he is aware already of his mindset for those things. But going ahead and getting into the draft, we see Amaterasu and Ron coming out on the side of SoaR Gaming and Flashpoint opting for the Terra. So a little bit of sustain already coming out on the sides of both teams.
Yeah, both teams have it for sure. Amaterasu could be in the support role for Jigz, so I wouldn't be surprised. Usually when you see a new addition to a team, teams will prioritize their picks early on in the draft to make sure that they feel comfortable in the limited amount of time they've been able to practice. So Amaterasu could be support, could be in the solo lane as well. Batz and Medusa, two team fight controllers drafted here for Flashpoint. Taking a look at the bands, Zeus, Hercules, the first two on each side. Giannis going to be the one for SoaR, trying to focus out Incon in that mid lane.
I really like the Medusa bots combination that Flashpoint has going for them, because one or the other is going to be able to burn out beads and actives, and at the same time both of them very strong team fight potential coming outside of these two ultimates already. And then when you combine that with a Terra ultimate as well as just her general AoE control and the Morrigan, I think we already know that that is probably going to be going to Incon, because that is a character I have seen him display time and time again, and he certainly loves.
I mean, a guy that has played a lot of different roles in the SPL. He's played support, he's played in the mid lane as well. That kind of lends itself to the Morrigan's kit, right? You got to be comfortable with multiple different gods and multiple different roles. Gonna have to see if it works out better for Incon than it did for Cyclone Spin for Team Allegiance. Artemis and Bacchus gonna be the dual lane here for SoaR. So they do first pick Amaterasu for fineokay in that solo lane, but this is a very traditional looking comp from SoaR Gaming. You've got your warrior that's gonna be your frontliner that takes a little bit longer to get online than most warriors, but overall, I mean, this is just a cut and dry draft from SoaR. Flashpoint, on the other hand, they're kind of all over the place.
Flashpoint is relying a little bit more upon their team's execution rather than individual gameplay at this stage, especially when you opt for a character like the Morrigan. You're really looking to just try and combine as much as possible, because with that Morrigan ultimate, I mean, she has a lot of very strong kits that she could potentially pick from the side of SoaR, or even her own with an additional Batz ultimate that they could potentially have at their dispense, or an additional Medusa.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as well as the global pressure that he could use with Shadowq's ultimate, he could transform into the Athena and use that ult to get anywhere necessary on the map. Batz definitely one of the gods that, you know, when the Morrigan first came out, I remember we were at Worlds, and I'm just sitting there talking with every pro player about, like, man, what about double Batz ult? Oh my God, a double Ares ult, and all this kind of crazy stuff. So we could absolutely see some of that here for Flashpoint in Game 1.
And what I also really like about Flashpoint's draft as far as this Morrigan is concerned is I think that it pairs up pretty well, especially with the early game potential, because she has a pretty solid lane clear. You can see she's already got the pressure, and they're opting immediately, just looking for these invades right away.
Vetium looks like he may have stolen away the little guys on both the red and the purple buff, knowing that he was going to be all alone with Jigz in the middle lane, just trying to secure himself a little bit of extra farm. But Flashpoint comes over and snags away both buffs from the enemy on the left-hand side, as well as what looks to be the oracles. On the right, you can see fineokay. He's invading the enemy speed, trying to answer back to Flashpoint's initial invade. So basically, even at this stage, both teams get the enemy team's opposite buffs, but none of their own quite yet.
No, but that's a pretty standard play that we've seen coming out from a lot of these teams early on already, is if you're going to be losing one side of the map, you might as well secure the other end and not focus so much on the map where you're losing your buffs. I mean, you're going to have XenoTronics and Shadowq with this Medusa. She has so much early clear potential. Combining that alongside the Athena, the lane pressure is just bound to go the way of Flashpoint. But I really like this Artemis-Medusa matchup. Artemis not really a hunter that we've seen too much play so far in the SPL. She's been brought out a couple of times, hasn't found a whole lot of success. But against the Medusa, she has the safe poke and clear potential that you'd really want to try and combat the Medusa with.
Is there no concern about the fact that Xeno can really close the gap and get into Vetium's grill pretty easily with that Lacerate, or is Artemis just looking to basically play under tower for the first few minutes?
You don't really want to risk running into the Artemis early on, though, because she does have her passive with the crit potential, and then on top of that, Artemis has the boar once it hits the level 5 stage, and you don't really, as a Medusa, want to put yourself that far out of position pre-level 5, just in case, because when you have RNG on the side of an Artemis, you never really know what can happen, and 1 or 2 crits is really all that Vetium would need to find the upper hand in a trade.
Well, Xeno zoning Vetium out a little bit here. Vetium doesn't quite have that boar, so you can see XenoTronics playing pretty aggressive because of that. Vetium has gone for the Devourer's Gauntlet start, the spiked gauntlet, really looking to towards the later game stages with this sort of build.
Yes, and with the Spike Gauntlet as well, it just plays so much better into Artemis's kit as a whole, because lifesteal is certainly the way to go with an Artemis, considering that she has the attack speed steroid, and Devourer's Gauntlet is a pretty favorable pickup for those hunters that already have attack speed steroids in their kits.
You can see andinster having a little bit of trouble letting go of the jungle roll. He picked up the speed buff on the right-hand side since his red buff got taken away. It's got to be one of the hardest parts of leaving the jungle is not getting speed, right?
I mean, as a Raw, he's certainly getting a little chance to reminisce, and not to mention, just the speed buff on the Raw is really good early survivability for him, should Flashpoint look to try and do any sort of insane early aggression, because with an Athena, Batz, and Morrigan in that mid lane, you never know who Incon's going to turn into, and on top of that, there is already a lot of threat from the Athena taunt into a Batz ultimate, and then whatever Incon decides to do.
There is so much CC potential on Flashpoint's composition. Even not factoring Incon's ultimate into the equation, he still has the stun as well. And you just look at the taunt, the Fear No Evil, the Petrify as well. Mirage, he's going in with that Athena ultimate right on top. Fear No Evil onto Homiefe, who beads and throws the hammer, is able to escape. 3 ultimates burned there by Flashpoint. Homiefe able to get away with his beads down, but his life intact. No first blood quite yet, as well as the red buff being secured there by SoaR. That's a win for the red squad.
And SoaR looking to turn the tables onto Shadowq, who could potentially be falling here, but it looks like he's just going to get out.
And he has made the rotation, but Mirage picks up first blood to save Jigz, or excuse me, to put Jigz down and make sure that his team does not give up that first blood. The support does fall, but not before Jigz does. Homiefe are not able to pick up that kill either. So 1 for 1 right now, 4:40 in. Even game, but Flashpoint to get that first blood.
Mildly unfortunate circumstances for SoaR there, that he would just barely escape with like the skin of his teeth on that Athena up until andinster picked it up. But picking up the oracles for Flashpoint, that's a pretty big win in my opinion, after trading out 1 for 1, because now Flashpoint are already going to have that vision secured onto the Gold Fury, which is going to permit Xeno to play as aggressively as he wants, because Homiefe, after having already burned out Thor ultimate, sure, that's fine and all, but when that ultimate's back up, he wants to try and ideally ult from that area. So with the vision, it's really going to just let Xeno do whatever he wants.
Xeno does have his boots completed, so he is going to have that additional movement speed that Vetium cannot boast about, but Vetium has started his stacking item. So as soon as Vetium really gets that Warrior Tab-Eye or Ninja Tab-Eye, whatever he elects to go for, it's going to be a big power spike for that Hunter for Flashpoint. Oh, Homiefe, there's the Fear No Evil from Mirage. No beads, no life. Mirage able to pick him up. 2 early kills for the jungler for Flashpoint, just abusing that relic cooldown for Homiefe.
That actually was a ton of damage coming out so early on, even at this stage of the game, and that's exactly the kind of gameplay that you want to see from Mirage. He just needs to spam this ultimate as much as possible, especially when you consider the fact that at the very worst case scenario, you could potentially have a secondary Batz ultimate if you really wanted to because of Incon playing this Morrigan.
We don't have a most improved player or, you know, comeback player of the year or any sort of award system like that, but if we did, Mirage would be a key candidate for that most improved player. I think that his maturation in the Pro League ever since he joined last season on Noble has really been a lot of fun to watch. And he can really make a lot of plays out of that jungle position now that he may not have been able to make a year ago.
And I know that it's still early on in this game for Flashpoint, but since we saw them the week before this bye week, they have really started to come together as a team and find that mesh of synergy that we talk about so often that is crucial for teams to really begin finding their victories in these sets.
And they're looking aggressive. We talk about that all the time in terms of, you know, this team is playing too passive. They're waiting for the enemy to engage on them, not being the aggressors themselves. Certainly can't say that about Flashpoint in this game, trying to make it happen all across the map, but it's all centered around Mirage. And with the way that Flashpoint's team composition is really put together, I think that's the perfect game plan for the early stages. Aquarius going to take a little bit of time to get online in that solo, and XenoTronics and Incon, they're more mid-game oriented, though Morrigan a little bit more late game. Homiefe comes crashing down on a Shadowq. The snipe was good, and the spin puts Shadowq down. Homiefe able to even up the kills 2-2, but Xeno around the backside. Petrify picks up the jungler. Incon transforms into the Thor, teleports in, trying to make the play, but he's tanking the tower. Just a little bit too much there, buddy.
Just caught barely on that tower line, taking shot after shot. Even if he'd been able to get that Thor ultimate off, he would have no doubt dropped from the sky immediately, taking the shot from the tower. But I mean, the thought process behind that was very, very strong, and I still like that play by Flashpoint to do the countering turn. And I think overall, Incon had the right idea there.
Absolutely. And another thing that isn't really talked about as much in terms of the Morrigan and her transformation targets with that ultimate is that she inherits, she doesn't inherit the points that the enemy is putting into their abilities. So when she transforms into Thor, I'm assuming Incon is leveling as 2, as that's the primary wave clear for the Morrigan. He's going to have the majority of his points in Thor's wall, which is like, sick. They're stunned a little bit longer, but I still don't really do any damage to them. No, actually Incon's leveling the 3 aspects, so Thor a perfect target. Those points are going into the hammer.
You can tell that Incon is probably planning ahead of time for how he's going to be utilizing his ultimate on the Morrigan, and Shadowq not having a very good time against that Jigz.
Incon gonna fall as well. fineokay, there's his debut kill in the SPL onto Incon. Aquarius picks up Vetium in response. Homiefe trusts his teammate to pick up XenoTronics, and Jigz will do just that as Homie cleans up Mirage. 4, make that 5. Deicide for SoaR, looking to get their first points on the season, and they're off to a good start right now, doubling up Flashpoint and kills, 8-4.
Flashpoint needed to take a little bit of a breather there after that engagement, try and figure out what exactly went wrong for them to go ahead and be wiping so soon at the start of the game from what looked like a very strong entryway.
I mean, the initial engagement was just the dream scenario when you draft Bacchus Raw. That's belly flop into Searing Pain every single time, and Shadowq just isn't tanky enough to really handle that yet. In fact, I think he went for the cooldown boots on the Athena, not really respecting the amount of damage that SoaR was going to be able to put out, and as a result, the Deicide goes the way of SoaR, the Gold Fury as well. Just before the 10-minute mark, SoaR extend their lead up to right around 3,000 gold.
And like you mentioned, with the Athena on the CDR boots, picking that up is I don't think it's necessarily a lack of respect for Jigz' damage output as much as it is him trying to spam his ultimate alongside of Mirage as soon as possible. We can see Incon opted for the cooldown boots as well. So I think CDR is really Flashpoint's primary focus here because their team comp is so heavily CC dependent. If they can just spam their ultimates as frequently as possible, SoaR, despite how much counterplay that they have available to them with the Thor ultimate, the Raw snipes, and the Bacchus engages, they can still be caught off guard multiple times if you're just unable to really combat the cooldown ratio. The
problem for Flashpoint right now, though, is Jigz on this Bacchus. 3-1-3 for the support. He's 2 levels above Incon right now. And there is not a support in the world I'd rather be 2 levels behind than Bacchus. I mean, he is terrifying when he's ahead.
He's a big boy, but Incon could be a big boy too if he just opts to turn into Bacchus.
That's true. He gets all those items.
The flop potential, it's damage. He's got the Intoxicate.
But he's leveling the Chug, if you look at it that way. By leveling his 1, then you're not getting that burst damage that Jigz is probably getting by leveling that belly flop.
That's a fair point to make. And at the same time, though, really all you need from the Bacchus is just a flop initiation, and then you can just drop your ultimate.
And the ultimate damage,
it's mostly CC at this point in time, really just trying to set up should he opt to turn into Jigz.
Vetium's turned into the aggressor in this lane, feeling a little bit more comfortable, despite still being down a level because of the lead that SoaR has earned for themselves. Still right around, a little bit actually closer to 2,000 gold now. Vetium trying to find the trap onto Xeno, forces the beads immediately. The boar from Vetium was a little premature, but regardless, XenoTronics did use the purification beads, and if you're telling me that you trade your ult for purification beads, I'm fine with that trade every time.
That's a massive win for Vetium anyway, just because of the fact that he has lifesteal. With the Devos online, he can sustain in the lane without a problem, but Xeno can't say the same.
fineokay, trying to find Mirage with the damage. There's the stun. The snipe isn't going to find Mirage, but it finds Aquarius instead. All of Flashpoint on the run. Petrify from XenoTronics. Not enough to save his jungler as Homiefe puts down the opposition. Nice 2-man stun from Aquarius, but it's not going to be enough. Oh, that Petrify was actually from Incon. Holy...
The first one.
The first of a million, man. What? How am I supposed to keep track of that, dude? Come on!
Well, Xeno can't exactly fly at this point in the game.
Maybe he bought Rallying Ritual Taco?
I don't think that's nearly a fast enough response time.
He's quick, Shadowq. He's gonna go down real quick here after the belly flop from Jigz. Vetium picks up his first kill of the game. Portal Demon goes the way of SoaR as well. I was almost gonna call it like Portal Demon thing guy for Tom, but I know what it's called, so I'm gonna call it Portal Dude thing. It's always like six names long. It's unbelievable. Middle tower getting sieged down here by SoaR. Aquarius is here on the back, trying to root out and do a little bit of extra damage, but just no follow-up whatsoever from Flashpoint. They can't really afford to do so with how far behind they are in experience. Just take a look at the level differences. 2 levels in the solo lane, a level in the jungle, and then you got 3 in the mid.
The main issue here for Flashpoint now, after that last engagement, or after the first engagement around the Gold Fury where their entire team ended up wiping, is that really gave SoaR the possibility to just start snowballing this game steadily but surely. And if you look at the roster for SoaR, that's a lineup that isn't exactly known for their early game. This is a mid to late game oriented comp, and for them to already be starting to come online this early on in the game could potentially be the start of the end for Flashpoint.
Very scary. Not quite down 5,000 gold yet is Flashpoint, but getting pretty close. 10-4, the kills. SoaR still in the lead. The Morrigan not having a great game yet again. Lost her competitive debut for Allegiance and Cyclone Spin's hands. Incon gonna have to turn it around, though. With how much damage the Morrigan does do in the late game and how much that ultimate gets more and more valuable as the game goes on, you could see Flashpoint try and make some plays around their mid laner.
Out of all the gods in the game right now, Morrigan certainly has the strongest possibility for her kit alone, and as far as comeback potential is concerned, but it is still difficult, even if you transform into somebody who's drastically further ahead of you. It's not necessarily going to be the ultimate turntable if the entire enemy team is just so ridiculously far ahead of yours that you can't follow up on any sort of kiting or turning potential that a Morrigan might have.
That's true, but I mean, we could see Vetium get pretty far ahead, get a lot of items online, and then Incon only needs one team fight as Vetium, with all those items that Vetium may have, could really turn it around pretty quickly. But I don't know if Flashpoint could afford to give up this Gold Fury. Started up once more by SoaR. andinster has the secure ready to go with that Searing Pain. Aquarius uses his ultimate there, trying to make sure that nothing too funky happens. Incon, he's Thor now, comes crashing around the backside, but all of SoaR immediately responds. The real Thor, it's his turn to go up in the sky and find a target. Decides not to, but a huge snipe from andinster. Meditation popped by Flashpoint, trying to get away from all the damage, courtesy of SoaR. Andy on point with this rod. Jigz able to pick up the first kill. Aquarius trying to juke it out in the middle of the entirety of SoaR. He will not be able to do so. 2 kills go the way of SoaR. And next, the Gold Fury.
And with the raw sustain coming through strong for the side of SoaR Gaming, I think that Flashpoint just need to back off at this point in time, except that the Gold Fury, well, actually, the Gold Fury is just going to fall. And before Flashpoint could even think about trying to contest it again, Shadowq was hanging around the side there, looking to maybe go in for some kind of spicy taunt 3-drop for the steal, but just not any possibility for him to really get in there. And now this T1 tower could potentially be SoaR's as well.
No fear from Jigz, and I don't blame him. My man's level 13 with 4 kills at the 16-minute mark. Tier 1 tower in middle falls, speed buff falls as well, and again, andinster having some separation anxiety from the buff is gonna pick it up. Just role play like he's still playing jungle. And let's be real, andinster wishes he could play raw jungle.
The way that he's utilizing this raw, though, he might as well be a raw jungle. His rotations have been on point. He's just been rolling around the map, dropping heals for his team. Anybody gets low, he's like, I got you, no problem. And his snipes are really would have been just completely on point this game. It's just an absolute disaster for Flashpoint, because even without any setup from his team, he's just been landing blind snipes over walls onto 1-2 targets every single time, and the damage that he's already outputting is just insane.
So SoaR, they haven't found a win quite yet, and I think andinster still didn't look quite comfortable in the mid lane. I think we can start to say that Andy is starting to find his groove a little bit. I think that we can safely say this is the best he's looked in the mid lane so far here in the spring split of Season 4 after his role swap from his longtime jungle position to the mid. And it's no surprise that it's on the raw, a god that he really liked to play consistently, even when he was a jungler.
Maybe he's been getting a couple of tips from his bae over there in EU, Nilissa. Just a little bit of tutorial lessons, you know?
I mean, Nilissa's been killing it so far for Elevate ever since she got picked up yet again. The strong mid laner for Europe. Maybe he was just like, hey, Nilissa, what should I be doing here? It's a little bit of couples VOD review, potentially.
You do have to attribute just his skill as well as a player overall. And Flashpoint burning out the Athena ultimate, but just not really any kind of steal or even contesting potential onto that portal demon. It's just going to fall the way of SoaR.
And with the secure potential for andinster on this raw is just too strong. I mean, the Celestial Beam into the Searing Pain is so much burst damage. It is so easily confirmable that it's very difficult to steal objectives away from raw. One of the reasons that he is a top tier mid laner, everyone always thinks of sustain as the first part, but I think his objective secure is better than most mages in the mid lane right now that we're seeing. I mean, Thoth, it can do about the same damage, but it takes his ultimate and timing that charge up correctly Zara, you just press 1-4 and the objective is basically gone. Just like the tier 1 tower on the left side.
Pressure and vision are just completely on the side of SoaR Gaming, and it's really hard for Flashpoint to even try and work their way around this map, considering that SoaR just has so much vision that anywhere Flashpoint tries to group up and potentially rotate to, SoaR's just already there. And they're looking, not necessarily for the fire giant. I think somebody just accidentally stepped onto it a little bit too much, but they might be looking for that FG really soon, considering the lead that they have.
Yeah, it's almost 10,000 gold at the 18-minute mark. SoaR really could do just about whatever they want at this stage in the game, though without Vetium, he's still split pushing on that left. It's going to be difficult for SoaR to do that fire giant. Though they do have the raw sustain, so we could see that, but instead it's going to be the focus onto the speed buff once more. andinster and the rest of SoaR trying to take it away from Mirage. Once again, there's the blink in from Mirage. Fear no evil as well. Incon finds the stun onto fineokay, but it's just not enough damage. Another great snipe from andinster. Sets the tone, and now SoaR's on the offensive. Incon, he's Vetium, but he's dead. Jigz able to put him down with that intoxicate. Mirage and Shadowq just trying to retreat. 3 members of SoaR strong. XenoTronics caught in the wrong neighborhood, brother. That's the mid lane, and SoaR owns that now. Homiefe falls as well. Aquarius has seen this one before. He's in the middle of everybody on SoaR with that wall from Homiefe that's going to block off his escape. 3 dead. SoaR in control over Flashpoint.
Even with Incon transforming into the Artemis that was already so far ahead, he just wasn't even able to secure any damage, and the little bit of damage that he was able to output was just immediately being healed right back up again by andinster on that raw. Shadowq trying to make something happen, but it looks like Mirage is going to go for it.
There's a snipe, but both players were stunned out, so it doesn't hit anybody. But more importantly, SoaR get the fire giant. Mirage falls. Shadowq is going to be next. fineokay having an excellent game in his SPL debut, 2-0-9 for the new addition to SoaR. SoaR looking very, very strong. Despite the new addition to the roster, 17-4. It's probably gonna be some more kills before this one's over, Taco.
Certainly, and on top of that, fineokay has really been doing a great job playing frontline on this Amaterasu, really allowing his team to just do whatever they want in the backline and giving Jigz a lot more flexibility to just kind of roam around with his team and not necessarily have to stick with his carries, because he trusts that fineokay is there to be the kiting and peeling potential for those carries. And so Jigz has just been kind of just flopping and going for it, and that's just what you want from a Bacchus who's already so far ahead. He's got 3 levels onto Shadowq, and he opted for the Voidstone pickup as well, which means there is plenty of damage coming out from him right now.
Absolutely. Doesn't have the pen boots that we sometimes see on the Bacchus, but it doesn't matter. Jigz actually has more damage than fineokay at this stage in the game, and if you're fineokay, you're about to make your SPL debut, maybe have a little bit of nerve, something like that. Is there a better matchup for you than Terra, where you can just be like, okay, I'm going to get to do whatever I want in the lane. I've got no pressure to worry about. I'll be able to invade if my team is there. I mean, Flashpoint kind of picked right into fineokay's comfort zone in that sense.
Well, that's the nice thing as well for SoaR, I think, in that when they saw the Terra pickup come through, they were immediately able to opt for the Amaterasu and not have any concerns in the world, because whether she went support or solo, they just trusted that fineokay would be able to work through that awkward early game stage that Amaterasu can sometimes have, and just really get to display his power potential on this god. And he's done an excellent job at utilizing it, like we've already mentioned, and it's just been such a problem for Flashpoint ever since they lost that initial engagement at the Gold Fury. That was really the little bit that SoaR needed, and even with a new pickup onto their team, we're really getting a chance to see what SoaR is capable of here.
I mean, not only do they have the new addition, but we're talking about how they've struggled throughout the beginning of this spring split. There's also a new team that had, a role swap, andinster to the mid lane, new members. It takes time to get some synergy, and SoaR looks like they finally found a little bit. Jigz can't flop onto Aquarius because of that Terra passive. Frenzy popped, but again, andinster tags Aquarius with that snipe. Homiefe up looking for Incon. He's gonna find him. The Aegis not gonna matter as Homiefe gives the Morrigan her 4th death. Great wall out of the Thor, blocks off the escape for the moment. The double flop from Jigz. The Petrify is nice from XenoTronics, but it's just not enough to do anything for Flashpoint. Middle Phoenix falls. They still have 4 members alive, so SoaR can't quite end the game yet. They're going to need to get a couple more objectives or a couple more kills.
There's just no damage right now from the side of Flashpoint. They're too far behind, but there's plenty of damage on the side of SoaR Gaming, and Shadowq is going to fall again.
andinster with his 3rd kill, 3-0 and 11 for the mid lane transfer. Right side Phoenix falls, only the left still standing. SoaR Gaming up about 20,000 gold at the 23-minute mark. Flashpoint, they try to make that engagement happen under that middle Phoenix, just wasn't enough. Can't quite do any damage like you mentioned. Xeno, we'll miss you, buddy.
And immediately, I mean, it's so amazing just how quickly the side of Flashpoint is falling, and they're making tanky characters seem as though they're just not tanks in the slightest.
Well, when you're up by this much, you can do basically whatever you want, and SoaR decides they've had enough. 21-4. They end the game at the 23.5-minute mark. SoaR finally on the board here in the spring split.
It took a little bit longer than I think most people were anticipating, but they certainly came out with a punch this time around, and picking up their first win, I mean, that's just got to feel good. And not only that, but they played great in game number 1.
They really did, and you have to keep in mind, if you're watching at home and you're a SoaR fan, most of their early matchups were very difficult. They've already played Eager, they've already played Luminosity, so their schedule for the rest of the split is pretty favorable. They probably can't get to those top 2 spots, but SoaR could definitely shoot up in those rankings pretty